6 months ago, an HOA I never joined tried to fine me $25 a day for security lights on my own house, then threatened to put a lien on my property like they were some kind of suburban mafia with clipboards. I honestly thought it was a joke at first, the kind of thing you show your friends over dinner and laugh about. Then I realized they were serious, and that's when I decided I was not going to make this easy for them. I work as a data analyst, which sounds boring until a situation like this comes along and you realize being obsessive about details is basically a superpower. I spend all day looking for patterns, catching mistakes, keeping records, making sure the facts line up with the story people are telling. That turned out to matter a whole lot because the people running this mess were counting on one thing: that I'd be too confused, too busy, or too intimidated to push back. Let me back up a sec. About 2 years ago, I bought a house in this little cluster of 5 older homes on a quiet street. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, just a solid house in a good spot. Those 5 homes were built back in the 70s, long before a developer came in and built a big planned community all around us. You know, the kind grand entrance sign, fake posh name, beige, everything little ponds, little rules, little tyrants. My place sits right on the edge where the old homes meet that newer development. My back fence practically kisses their territory, but legally, clearly, completely, I am not part of their HOA. That was one of the reasons I bought the place. When I was in escrow, I asked about that specifically because I'd heard enough HOA horror stories to know I wanted no part of strangers telling me what shade of brown my mailbox should be. My realtor was clear, the title search was clear, the deed was clear, everything came back clean. No HOA covenants, no association dues, no architectural committee, none of it. I kept all that paperwork, of course, because that's who I am. Some people collect baseball cards. I keep closing documents in labeled folders. For the first year and a half, life was peaceful. Then over the winter, our area started dealing with package theft and car break-ins. It was all over local Facebook groups, local news, doorbell camera clips, the whole thing. Guys wandering through driveways in hoodies, tugging on car doors at 2 in the morning like they were browsing a store. I'm not a paranoid person, but I'm also not dumb, so I had 3 motion-activated LED security lights installed. One over the porch, one over the driveway, one along the side yard where I park. They weren't ridiculous. I didn't turn my house into a prison yard. They were professionally installed, aimed right bright when triggered, dark when nothing moved. Simple, practical, normal. The kind of lights half the country has over a garage. A week later, I came home and found this crisp white envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just that weird official look that instantly raises your blood pressure. Inside was a letter on expensive paper from the Architectural Review Committee of the HOA in the development next to me. They informed me very politely and very confidently that I had installed unapproved exterior fixtures that violated their aesthetic standards. Apparently, my lights did not align with the warm, curated character of the community. That phrase still makes me laugh. Curated character. Like we were talking about a boutique hotel lobby and not my driveway. The letter gave me 14 days to remove the lights and submit a new lighting plan for approval. Approval. On my house. I just stood there in my kitchen, with the letter in one hand, house keys in the other, smiling like a man who had just been handed a puzzle with a missing piece he already found. I went straight to my filing cabinet, pulled out my deed title, report, plat map, title, insurance policy, and spread everything across the table. I already knew what I was going to find, but I checked anyway, line by line. Clean, separate parcel, outside the HOA. No authority, no jurisdiction, no question. I could have thrown the letter away right then. My wife later told me that would have been the sane thing to do. She was probably right. But something about the tone of that letter got under my skin. It had that smug little assumption baked into it, like they'd already decided I belonged to them and I just hadn't figured it out yet. So I sent them an email. Very polite, very professional, very dry. I thanked them for reaching out, referenced the letter, included my parcel number, and asked them to please provide the recorded covenant or governing document that gave their association authority over my specific property. I even mentioned that I must have misplaced it in my files. That part was for me. I enjoyed typing that sentence. No reply. A few days later, Saturday morning, I'm standing in my kitchen in pajama pants making coffee when the doorbell rings. I open the door, and there she is. Carol. Mid-60s, maybe clipboard in hand, mouth already set in that tight little line people get when they're used to being obeyed. She introduced herself like I should recognize the name, said she was from the Architectural Review Committee, and told me they hadn't received a response. I said I had emailed. She flicked her hand like my words were gnats, said they were busy, that the lights were blinding people, that they didn't match the approved bronze carriage-style fixtures in the community. She said it the way a queen might complain about peasants hanging the wrong curtains. I stayed calm, asked her again nicely which document gave the HOA authority over my property. She scoffed, actually scoffed. Then she said something I will never forget. She said, "You're in the community. You benefit from our property values. You follow our rules." That was the moment I knew this wasn't confusion. Maybe it started that way, maybe not, but by then it had become entitlement in high heels. I told her my deed said otherwise. She told me realtors lie about that all the time. Then she warned me that if I didn't remove the lights, fines would begin. And just like that, she turned around, climbed into her golf cart, and rolled off like some low-budget movie villain patrolling the kingdom. I closed the door and laughed, but it wasn't happy laughter. It was that tight kind you do when you realize somebody has mistaken your politeness for weakness. That same day, I made a folder on my computer called HOA harassment. I scanned the letter logged, the visit saved the email I'd sent, and started a spreadsheet. Dates, times, quotes, letter language, claimed fines, everything. A week later, the second letter showed up. This one said I had failed to cure the violation and now owed $50 with another $25 a day stacking up until I complied. Imaginary money for imaginary authority. I logged that too. 2 weeks after that certified mail arrived from the property management company working for the HOA. By then, the total was over $400, and now the letter was using phrases like lien, legal action collection, foreclosure. You know, casual stuff. Totally normal way to address security lights on a property you don't even control. And that, weirdly enough, is when I stopped being annoyed and got excited. Because now they had done it in writing. Not just Carol at my porch, not just some vague committee nonsense. They had formally threatened illegal action against property outside their jurisdiction, and they had sent it through tracked mail. It was like they gift-wrapped the evidence for me. I did a little digging and found out the HOA board held public meetings the first Tuesday of every month. Their agenda was posted online. And sure enough, on the next agenda there it was, my address listed for ratification of fines and authorization of legal action. I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, you people have no idea what room you just invited me into. For the next few days, I got ready. I printed every letter they sent. I printed my email. I printed my spreadsheet showing the running total of their made-up fines. I had a large color copy made of the county plat map with the HOA boundary marked clearly and my property highlighted outside it. I flagged the relevant lines in my title insurance policy. I put everything into a neat folder because if you're going to blow up somebody's argument in public, you might as well look organized while you do it. The meeting was in their clubhouse, one of those beige rooms that always smells faintly like coffee carpet cleaner and old resentment. Maybe 20 people were there, mostly bored homeowners waiting to complain about dog poop and shrubs. I signed in, sat in the back, kept quiet. My item was near the end. When they finally got to it, Carol stood up with that clipboard like it was a badge. She told the board I was a non-compliant homeowner who had ignored repeated attempts at resolution. She said my lights were harsh, inappropriate, disruptive, out of character with the community. She made me sound like I had installed airport runways in my front yard. Then she asked the board to authorize legal action and a lien. The board president, this tired-looking guy in a polo, who clearly thought this was going to be another routine vote, glanced around and started to move things forward. That's when I raised my hand. I said, "Excuse me, I'm the owner of the property you're discussing. May I have 2 minutes before you vote?" You could feel the room change. Carol turned so fast I thought she might hurt her neck. The board president looked startled, but he nodded and told me to come up. So I walked to the front, set down my folder, and unfolded the plat map on the table. I kept my voice steady. That part mattered. I didn't want to sound emotional. I wanted to sound certain. I told them that for 6 weeks their committee had been sending me violation letters, fines, and legal threats. I told them the total they now claimed I owed. I told them they were about to vote on a lien against my home. Then I pointed to the map and said, "There's just one problem. My property is not in your HOA." Silence. I pointed again, slow and clear, showed the boundary line, showed my parcel outside it. Then I held up the title policy and said it plainly my property was free of their covenants, had never been part of the association, and they had absolutely no legal authority over it. Then I looked directly at Carol and said the part I had practiced twice in my kitchen. What you've been doing is harassment. And if you vote tonight to file a lien on my property, you won't be protecting the community. You'll be authorizing fraud. That landed. I went back to my seat. For a second, nobody moved. Then the board president asked to see the map again. All 5 board members leaned over it, tracing lines with their fingers, reading parcel numbers, looking at Carol, then back at the map. One woman whispered, "Oh my God," like she had just realized she'd boarded the wrong plane. The president turned to Carol and asked if the map was accurate. She started fumbling, mumbling something about assumptions, management records being part of the area. He cut her off and asked again, louder this time, whether my property was in their HOA or not. She couldn't answer. That was the twist right there, the moment the room stopped seeing her as the authority and started seeing her as the liability. The board president turned back to me and his whole face had changed. Gone was the bored guy in a polo. Now he looked like a man calculating how many ways this could ruin his week. He apologized right there in front of everyone. He tabled the item immediately, adjourned the meeting on the spot, and said I'd be contacted within 48 hours. Carol vanished before half the chairs were folded up. 2 days later, I got a letter from the HOA's attorney, 3 pages, formal apology, full acknowledgement that my property was outside the association, full withdrawal of every fine, full confirmation that no lien would be pursued. They called it an administrative error, which is a cute phrase for we nearly let one overzealous woman commit legal stupidity in public. They also mentioned policy changes, boundary training, and corrective procedures going forward. A week after that, a neighbor who actually lives in the HOA texted me. He said Carol had been forced off the architectural committee in an emergency session. Turns out this wasn't her first power trip, just the first one that exploded in front of witnesses with documents on the table. My lights are still there, by the way. Still working. Still lighting up my driveway every time motion hits the sensor. And because I am at heart a petty man with a decent sense of timing, I upgraded my porch bulb to one of those smart ones that changes color. During the holidays, I make it red or green. Nothing obnoxious, just enough to amuse me every time I pull in and remember that nobody gets to govern property they don't own. The thing I learned from all this, and maybe you've learned it too the hard way, is that power makes some people sloppy. Not strong, not smart sloppy. They get so used to nobody questioning them that they stop checking whether they're even standing on solid ground. The second lesson is simpler records matter. Paper matters. Dates matter. Calm words matter. If I had relied on memory instead of documentation, this story could have ended very differently. And the last lesson, this one stayed with me. Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the loudest criminals or the obvious villains. Sometimes it's a woman with a clipboard, a neat haircut, and total confidence in rules that don't apply. That kind of person can do real damage if nobody stops them. Now, when I walk my dog and see Carol in the distance, she suddenly finds the sky fascinating. Mailbox, tree, sidewalk, anything but me. And every single time my lights come on, I get that little private moment of satisfaction because they aren't just security lights anymore. They're proof that a bully swung at the wrong house and broke her own hand on the paperwork. So tell me this, when somebody with a little bit of borrowed power tries to push past the line, do you think it's better to ignore them and protect your peace, or stand there, hold the map up, and make them answer for it? And have you ever had someone in a position of authority try to control something that was never theirs in the first place? Share your story, because I know I'm not the only one who's had to teach a petty tyrant where the border really is.